You know, sometimes the most powerful political arenas aren't in parliaments or grand debate halls. Sometimes they're in places you'd least expect, like a football stadium. We're about to dive into the incredible story of how, in Tunisia, the roar of the crowd literally became the voice of the people, turning football fans into some of the country's most powerful political players. Just listen to this line. That's not from a politician's speech, it's not from a protest leader. That is a lyric from a song, belted out from the stadium terraces by thousands of football fans. And that one line right there, it captures this huge shift where the love for a team became a platform for an entire nation's pain. So, how on earth did this happen? Right? How did simple football chants turn into these powerful anthems of protest? Well, to really get it, you have to understand the story of one of Tunisia's most famous clubs and the crisis that pushed its supporters to become so much more than just fans. Okay, let's get into the story of Club African. And I'm not talking about a team just having a bad season here. No, we're talking about a club that was pushed to the absolute brink of collapse by corruption, greed, and raw political ambition. So, after the 2010 revolution, this businessman, Slim Riahi, takes over Club African, and he looked at the club's massive, passionate fan base and saw a political tool. His whole game was to use the fans' loyalty as a launchpad for his own political party. People even started calling him the Tunisian Berlusconi. And once he used the club, things went downhill and fast. It was like a domino effect. In 2014, he runs for president. Just 3 years later, he's a fugitive, convicted for corruption and fleeing the country. And by 2019, the club he left behind was an absolute mess, drowning in debt and facing crippling sanctions from FIFA. He just abandoned them. So, with their club on the verge of disappearing and the leadership totally gone, who stepped in? The fans. The organized supporter groups, the ones they called the Ultras, they just refused to let their club die. They launched these amazing grassroots fundraising campaigns that they called Eletica. And the result of Eletica? It was just staggering. Through their own efforts, selling virtual tickets, making merch, rallying support from all over the world, the fans raised this much. Over $1.35 million. They paid off the club's FIFA debts themselves. I mean, what an incredible show of power and solidarity. But here's the thing. The fans didn't just save their club with their wallets. They found their voice. That same incredible energy they used for fundraising, they poured it into creating some of the most powerful protest songs in the entire Arab world. Just listen to this heartbreaking line from their most famous chant, Ya Hayatna, which means our life. This isn't about football. This is a direct shot, a reference to a horrific national scandal where newborn babies were dying in public hospitals because of pure negligence. They were mourning a national tragedy right there from the football stands. They also went right after the justice system. This verse, it's about the suspicious death of a fellow fan, Omar Labidi, who died during an encounter with police. When they sang, "Oh, judge, we are seeking truth," they were accusing the system of a cover-up, demanding the accountability that the state itself wasn't providing. Suddenly, their songs became this living newspaper for the voiceless. They sang about everything: fatal bus accidents, the struggles of women working in rural areas, corruption, unemployment. The stadium itself was transformed into a public square, a safe space to shout about the problems of a nation that felt completely ignored by its leaders. Now, it's really important to understand this wasn't just a Club African thing. What we're talking about was part of a much bigger shift that was happening all across Tunisia after the 2011 revolution. The stadium terraces, well, they became a breeding ground for a whole new kind of political expression. The art form they mastered is known as chants virage. It literally means chants of the curves, and it refers to the curved stands in the stadium where the most hardcore fans, the Ultras, all gather. And this is where they took the art of a team song and turned it into razor-sharp political commentary. And you can see it in the data. Before the 2011 revolution, chants with political criticism were pretty rare. But afterwards, especially in the later years, boom, they just exploded. This chart shows it wasn't just a one-off thing. It was a movement that was finding its voice in stadiums all over the country. Yeah, the numbers are pretty stark. Researchers looked at over 1,400 chants, and they found almost a third of them had direct political criticism. And who were they targeting? Overwhelmingly the state. The police and the justice system were in their sights more than anyone else, which tells you exactly where people's anger was focused. So all of this leads to this really, really fascinating idea. Is it possible that the experience of being a football fan, organizing, raising money, holding your leaders accountable, could that actually be a kind of hands-on training ground for democracy? Well, to test that theory, researchers did something pretty clever. They compared the fans of Club Africain with the fans of their biggest rival, Espérance de Tunis, or EST. Now, EST is a totally different story. They historically had close ties to the old regime and have had a ton of stability and success. So you have a very different fan culture over there. And when you put them side by side, you see two completely different mindsets. For Club Africain fans, that crisis forced them to become active citizens. They believe power needs to be shared, that they have to be the ones to keep the system in check. Meanwhile, EST's success meant its fans could afford to be more passive, to just delegate power to leaders they trust. Their motto is basically, no politics in the stadium. So through that struggle to save their club, the Club Africain supporters learned real-world skills. We're talking organization, collective action, demanding accountability. They literally went from being victims of a corrupt system to being the masters of their own destiny. I mean, those are the basic building blocks of any functioning democracy. So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Let's bring it all together and make it crystal clear. You can really see this amazing evolution. It all starts with a crisis, a system that fails. That failure sparks grassroots action, not because they want to, but because they have to. Through that action, they find their collective voice, and that voice gets bigger, tackling social issues. And finally, all those skills and all that confidence learned in the stadio, it turns these fans into real political actors. And the reason this matters, the big so what, is that it completely changes how we should think about political engagement. It shows that being a fan, something so often dismissed as trivial, can actually be this vital training ground. It's a place where a generation of young people who feel totally shut out of formal politics can learn how to organize, how to demand change, and how to be heard. So we'll leave you with this final thought. The story of Tunisia's Ultras is this powerful reminder that when traditional politics and institutions fail the people, new voices will always rise up. And it forces us to ask, where should we be looking to find the true pulse of a society? Because sometimes it's not in the halls of power, it's in the heart of the stadium.
جينا الحفرة سموها لنا بلادنا حفرة ما نعيشو فيها كيما ندادنا نحبو نخليو عيشة هنيا لولادنا يعيشو غرامهم في الفراش كيما عدادنا حسادنا كمشة جبورة يحبو يجيبوها سيادنا في غربنا وهلكولنا استعدنا يحبوا يقومونا وما عرفوش عنادنا في راجل حلبوا عليه ونفكوا بلادنا يا حياتنا عيشتنا اللي اخترناها هذه حياتنا هذه دنيتنا اللي فيها حكاياتنا هوني القرحة نحاربوا على اخواتنا واللي ماتوا ديما عايشين بيناتنا كناياتنا عالفريقي والربحة اللي زهدنا عالحرية والبلاد اللي زادنا عالمظلومين والدولة اللي خلاتنا عالحق اللي يبقى بيناتنا والحالة سرقة وغورة وهما الشبانة اللي شبهك قبيح يروح يبعد ينسانا. اسمع مليح لغة فيها شحذانا بعدوها نهدوا ملايين للبرا نعتيدوها والخيط العين السرقة دعمتوها دخلتوا الكوكا البلاد فسدتوها هششتوا الناس للغربة نسيتوها